Hello! Welcome to today's video. Today we have a bookish Q&A, which I'm so excited for. I asked over on my Instagram a couple of days ago for you to send me all your bookish questions, literally anything bookish related. And you guys are seriously amazing because you sent me so many questions and I've tried to narrow them down as best I could. There were some kind of repeat ones or some questions that kind of overlap, so I've combined them into the same questions. So hopefully we get through quite a lot of the questions today. And I just want to say thank you so much to everybody over on my Instagram for asking questions. I absolutely love it over there. It's just honestly such a friendly little place and I love chatting to you guys in my DMs. It makes me so happy. It honestly makes me so happy. And yeah, I just want to say a big thank you for being so nice to me over there because videos like this wouldn't be possible without you guys. So a big thank you. And like I said, we have a lot of questions to get through, so let's get on with it. The first question is, how many books have I read so far this year? And I'm actually gonna have to double check my Goodreads. I actually only count the books that I've fully read. I don't log DNFs on my Goodreads. I've read 57 books this year, which I think is the most books I've read any year. Let alone just over halfway through. And my aim for this year was 52. I don't really know how I feel about setting reading goals because I think it would just stress me out. I set 52 because that's one a week and I feel like one a week is amazing. And I felt like that was very doable for me. So I kind of set that as the goal, but I didn't really want the extra pressure of trying to hit a number because I also know, being a mood reader, how much my mood kind of changes and how I go through phases where I really want to read and I get through books so quickly. But then I also go through phases where I don't feel like reading much or I'm getting through a book really slowly. So I kind of didn't want the extra pressure of a goal to hit. I did put 52 as my goal. I have hit that, which is fun. But I also kind of feel like this is my first year where I'm reading as much as I'm reading. Like, I've never read this much before in my life. So I also didn't really know how many books I would get done by the end of the year. So I'm interested to see what that number ends up being. That's crazy. So I've read 57 so far. I'm on my 58th book. That brings us on to my next question, which is, what am I currently reading? I'm currently reading Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This is the third Lucy Foley book that I read. I read The Guest List and Hunting Party, and this is the third one that I'm reading by her. I'm actually reading this as part of the vlog, which is coming very soon, so stay tuned for that because all my reviews, all my reactions will be in that vlog. And then the next question we have, what is your favourite book so far in 2024 and what is the most boring book that you've read so far? Okay, for my favourite, I'm gonna have to say Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I feel like this is the book that has had the most impact on my entire year so far of reading. I read this back in January and I literally haven't stopped thinking about this series since. And then since the novella came out and then Reckless came out this year as well, I just feel like it's taken up such a massive part of my reading this year. So I'm gonna have to say Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is also my first fantasy that I've read. So that's exciting. One of my goals this year was to get into more fantasy and this was the first one that I read. So it does have a special place in my heart. And I'm pretty sure this and Powerful are my only 6-star reads this year, which is actually crazy thinking about that. And in case you're wondering what a 6-star read is, a 6-star read to me is something that is a book that is just off the scale. It just feels like 5 stars isn't enough to give it, and I would give it infinite stars if I could. They're just like my favourite all-time books. And this and Powerful are my only 6-star reads this year. Almost boring. This was kind of hard for me to narrow down. I feel like I've had quite a few books this year that I probably should have DNF'd, but I didn't. And most of the time, most of those are because I wasn't having a good time reading it and I did find them a bit boring. But the one that I've chosen is Love in the Time of Serial Killers, which I was so sad about because I honestly thought I was going to love this book. I thought it was going to be a fun rom-com but also have the elements of true crime in there as well, which just sounds like it would be right up my street. But I just feel like this book did not have a plot. Like, it was very character driven, but then I didn't really feel like we knew the main character. I feel like the main girl Phoebe was just kind of annoying to read, and I feel like it takes a lot for me to say that a main character is annoying. And the plot was basically just following her around living her life. Like, there was no kind of direction of the plot. There wasn't really a plot, to be honest. It was literally just her meeting her neighbour and them talking. I literally couldn't even tell you the plot of this book. So I'm gonna say this for most boring book of the year so far, which is so sad. So sad, because also this cover is absolutely stunning. I love the whole retro vibe and it makes me so sad, to be honest. Next question is, what's your ultimate Roman Empire book? I actually couldn't narrow it down to one. I literally couldn't. So I have 3. These 3 are the books that ever since I stopped reading them, I have thought about non-stop. Like, they're books that I keep going back to and I just can't get them out of my head. I don't know what it is about them. They've just literally made an imprint in my brain. The first one might be kind of a given. if you've seen any of my videos, if you've seen me talk about the series, but it's the Magnolia Park series. Every single one of these characters in this series lives in my head rent free. I still haven't recovered from reading these books. I've not felt like this about a book series before, ever. And I just feel so attached to these characters and I love them, and they honestly feel like real people to me. And I literally think about them non-stop. So we have Magnolia Parks, which might be kind of a given. The next two we have If He Had Been With Me. This is another one that I rave about all the time. Finny and Autumn, I absolutely adore them. I think about them all the time. And a book hasn't hit me as hard ever as this book has. And I just adore them. And then the third one is Every Last Word by Tamara Islandstone. This is a book that when I finished it, I had no idea the impact it would have on me later on. But when I tell you, there is a moment in this book that has not left me. I literally can't stop thinking about it. And I literally still haven't recovered. I literally haven't recovered from it. I continue to think about it. I'm still shocked by it. It was so unexpected that I'm literally still shocked by it, which I think tells you a lot. And this one, again, is one of my Roman Empire books because I literally still haven't recovered. Next we have, what are 3 things you love to find in a book and 3 things that you don't? I love this question, but it was also so hard for me to narrow down. Let's start with 3 things that I love to find in a book. The first one is cute nicknames. Nothing gets me like a cute nickname. And I don't mean like pet names like babe or darling, not those kind of like pet names. It's more like when there's a characteristic of the person, or I don't know how to explain it now that I'm thinking about it. It's like when they have a characteristic or something they've done that then they've got a nickname from, if that makes sense. Either that or when they're called by their last name. I don't know what it is about that nickname. It gets me every time. And then inside jokes or sayings that the 2 main characters have that they use all the time. This is something that I found makes me feel really, really connected to characters. The book that I can think of as an example of this is Magnolia Parks and Magnolia and BJ, and for example their whole how's the weather parks little saying that they have, that's sort of like it's not an inside joke, but it's like an inside thing that they have with each other, and I just absolutely love that. And again, Magnolia Parks is a really great one for that because they have so much symbolism and so many things that when I then see them in real life, I literally think of those characters because that's how connected I feel to them. So I love it when there's little things like that, whether it's inside jokes or little sayings that they have with each other. I love it. I love it. And then the next one is so specific, so specific, but it's when the main male character lends out his clothes. So whether it's like an oversized t-shirt or an oversized hoodie, and he wants to do that for the girl, and he usually says something like that he thinks it looks better on her, and he wants to do that for her. I love that. I love it. And then 3 things that I don't love. One is cringy pet names. I don't really like baby or baby girl. Actually even saying that, I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like it. Baby girl especially is not for me. That's not for me. The pregnancy trope is not my favourite. Is not my favourite, especially when it's sort of tagged on in the epilogue. I don't know, I just don't love it. I don't love it. I feel like a lot of epilogues in a lot of romance books are kind of just a bit cliche, and they usually have the pregnancy trope involved there, and I just don't absolutely love it. Not for me. And then number 3 is probably over possessiveness, especially from a male main character. I literally can't get behind that. The minute that they are over possessive towards the main character, it's literally giving me the ick. It's crossed a line. I don't want it. I don't want it. And I feel like a lot of the romance books that I didn't really get on with or didn't connect with, that's most likely the reason, is because the male main character is too possessive. And I feel like there's a real line between being protective and looking out for the female character, which is what we want, to being possessive and kind of borderline controlling. I just can't get behind that, and I really hate it when men are written like that. I don't like it. The next question is favourite book boyfriend. This was so hard for me to choose just one. It was so hard. But I think my ultimate book boyfriend, if I had to pick, would probably be Julian Hates from Magnolia Parks, from Daisy Hates. That whole series, I adore that man. And then I got a lot of questions on how I annotate, if I annotate, do I annotate every single book, those types of questions. So I usually go into a new book not knowing whether I'm going to annotate it or not, unless it's part of a series. So the only exception for this is something like if there was a new Magnolia Parks book or Daisy Hates book coming out, I've already annotated every single one of those books, so that book I would know that I was going to annotate. But most of the time I just start reading the book, and then if I think that line is so good, or that's such a lovely quote, or it's just something that I just absolutely love the way it was written, or just something that really sticks out to me and I know that I want to remember it or go back to it at some point, then I'll either underline it or I'll highlight it just with a highlighter. Usually I match my highlighters and my pens to the front cover. So for example, my Magnolia Parks book, the first one, all my highlights in here are with pink highlighter so that it matches the vibe of the book. So I'll either just underline or highlight, but what I've started doing recently as well is actually writing in the margins, because I think it's so fun when you then lend that book to somebody and they can see what you thought at that time, and it's also just so fun to kind of get some of your emotion out towards the book. I did this with Powerless and Powerful and Reckless, that whole series, and I absolutely love doing it because you have such strong reactions to a book like that, and I love just writing in the margin like, I can't believe what's happening right now, or just little like initial thoughts that I have when I'm reading it. I think it's so fun to do, and it's also so fun to look back on and reread how you were feeling at the time. I just absolutely love it. So that's just how I annotate, and the reason that I annotate is just to feel more connected to that book. And if it's a book that I absolutely love the way it's written, or I love certain lines, I love going back to then reread them at some point, and it just makes that whole reading experience of that book just so much better, and I really enjoy doing it. There's not really any complex reason or way that I do it. I just kind of do what I fancy at the time, to be honest. I know that a lot of people have like colour-coded tabs. The only books that I tab are books that I don't really want to write in, so things like poetry books, I usually tab the page of the poem that I really like. Either that, or even like self-help books. Sometimes I just tab the page that I want to go back to, but a lot of the time as well, that's because it's the whole page that is useful, or like the poems, it's the whole poem that I really like. So that's the only time that I really tab my books. I hope that kind of answers all the annotating questions. Next question is, will you be reading more fantasy? And yes I will. I feel like I haven't really entered the whole fantasy world properly yet. I feel like I've just been on the outskirts. I've read the whole Powerless series, and I've read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. They're kind of the only fantasy series that I've really been reading this year so far, but there are quite a few that are very much on my radar that I want to go into. When I'm more in the fantasy mood, I feel like I have to really have my brain engaged when I'm going into a fantasy book, and I have to really be in the right mood. So the ones that are on my radar are Fourth Wing, Akatar, which scares me, it really scares me, but I will definitely be reading that at some point, and also Throne of Glass, which again scares me, but I feel like it's got to be done. And I am so intrigued just to see what all the hype is about all three of those books. So they're the fantasy books that I hope to be reading probably this year, to be honest. It makes me nervous saying that but it is my goal to get round to them later on this year. So we'll see. They all really intimidate me, but not necessarily in a bad way, just in a, it kind of makes me nervous going into them. But I do think I'm gonna like them, and I do think I'm really gonna enjoy them. We'll see how I get on. And then we have my top 3 favourite thrillers, and I've chosen the ones that I continue to think about and that I feel like have left the most impact on me. First one being The Silent Patient. I read this really early on when I was first getting into reading, and I really liked it, and it was one of the books that kind of made me realise how much I love a psychological thriller, and it's definitely up there in my top 3 favourites. And then we have We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book gets so much hate, and I literally don't know why. I think it just really annoys people, like with how it ends and everything, but I absolutely loved it. I really connected to the way that this was written. I really enjoyed that, and I literally got through this so quickly. I mean, it is only a little small book, but I found that I was wanting to read it slower just so that it wouldn't be over. The whole vibe of this book I absolutely loved, and the twists in it are so good in my opinion, and it's honestly probably one of my favourite books of all time. Just putting that out there. And then we have a more recent read, which I actually read I think in February this year, and that's Ward D by Frida McFadden. This is my favourite Frida McFadden book that I've read so far. I just really enjoyed this. I liked the whole setting, I liked the atmosphere and the eeriness that this book had through the whole thing, and I think it's one of Frida McFadden's most underrated books. So they're my top 3 favourite thrillers right now. I don't know what order these would be in. I don't know which one would be top. I don't think I could order these even if I tried. But they're my top 3. And then I had a lot of questions asked me what my favourite book series is. I feel like I have favourite book series in each genre, but I think if I had to pick overall my absolute favourite book series, it would have to be Magnolia Parks. I mean, I literally go on and on about this series, but it would have to be this. I haven't experienced what I've experienced with this book series with any other book. There is literally nothing else that has me in a chokehold quite like these books. So for favourite series, I'm gonna have to say the Magnolia Parks universe. I loved this question. The next question is favourite book to TV show or movie adaptation. And this really got me thinking. I've narrowed it down to my favourite 3. I think. The first one is Where the Crawdads Sing. I read that last year, absolutely loved the book, and I watched the movie straight after I read the book as well, so everything that happened in the book was very much still in my mind. So it was really interesting then watching the film, having literally just finished the book. I absolutely loved that film. I think it captured it so well. The movie just captured the whole vibe and the atmosphere of it. And when I was reading the book, I very much felt like it was just me and Kaya, and we were following her kind of growing up. And we really got that same vibe watching the film. I also think the whole setting of it is exactly what I thought it was going to be in my head. It was exactly how I'd imagined it. I love the casting. I think it's so good. I think it's so good. And I was so happy with what they decided to include and how true it is to the book as well. So that's the first one. The second one is The Hunger Games. This is actually a weird one because I watched the movies when they first came out and I literally have only read the books this year, but because it had been so long since I'd seen the movies, obviously I know the general gist of The Hunger Games, but because it had been so long, it was actually really interesting to read the books first and then watch the films. I do think that you do get so much more detail in the books, which is to be expected, but I do think you do get to see more things in the book and you get to meet characters that aren't necessarily in the films, and they did change quite a few things in the films, which I did notice, but I think the first one especially was so good. It was just absolutely amazing to see that kind of action come to life in a film. I think they've done that really, really well, especially the first one in the series. And then we have Normal People by Sally Rooney. This one I actually preferred the show to the book, which I feel like rarely happens, but I actually prefer the show. I just feel like the casting of that show is absolutely perfect. I feel like they really brought the characters to life, and I feel like you could just feel all the tension, but you could also feel their connection through the screen, and I just feel like that was just done so well, and I just feel like I connected with the show so much more than I did with the book, which is really interesting because I don't think that's ever happened to me before. Leading on from that, I was also asked what 3 books would I love to see be made into a TV show or a movie, and again, so hard for me to narrow down because I feel like I have so many for this. The first one is kind of a given, and that's Magnolia Parks. I'd love to see this as a TV series, and I do actually think there were rumours about it potentially becoming a show. Just imagine that would be amazing. But I'm going to kind of rule that one out for now, just because I think it is already going to be a show. So I'm going to choose 3 other books for a show or movie adaptation. But my go-to one would be Magnolia Parks. That would be absolutely amazing. But I'm going to choose, if you'd been with me, as a movie would be Insane. I think it would absolutely break my heart, but it's something I need. I need this to be a movie. I need it in my life. I need it. I would just absolutely love to see Autumn and Finny come to life and just their whole connection. I would love it. I would love it. The next one is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I think this could work really well as either a film or a TV show. I would absolutely love to see this come to life. I would love to see the whole time travelling apartment situation. I'd love to see Clementine and her painting and meeting this chef. I just think that would be so fun, and I think it would make such a good romance film or show. I just think it would be so good, so good. And then last but not least, we have Never Lie by Freddie McFadden. I think this would be an amazing thriller film. I would love that. I think it would have such an eerie, spooky kind of feeling. I was trying to look at all the Freida McFadden books because I would love to see so many of hers on a screen, but I think this one really stood out to me because I was like, that would just be so creepy vibes, and I think that's what would make it work so well. I just think that'd be so good. So I'm gonna go with Never Lie as well. Next question is, what fictional town would you like to live in? And again, so hard for me to narrow down. I feel like I can say that for every single question. But truly, I was like, would I want to be in Powerless? But then their whole world is kind of corrupt. And would I have no power? Would it just be me as I am? In which case, I'm not going there. I don't think that would be good for me. But if I could go and have a power, potentially. I think if I'm going just as I am now, I'm gonna go to Chestnut Springs, I think, and find me a cowboy. That's what I think I need in my life. I just want to go to a ranch and just be living my best life out there. I think that would be so fun. I want to experience the small town vibes with the cowboys. I'm gonna go to Chestnut Springs. Biggest book disappointment. This one is gonna get controversial. This book is so loved. Let me just say first, I can completely see why it's so loved. It just wasn't for me, and I didn't connect with it like I thought it was going to. The reason this is the biggest disappointment is because it had so much hype and it has all the elements of a romance that I absolutely love. So I honestly thought I was going to absolutely love it. Like, I genuinely thought this is going to be my new favourite book. I genuinely thought that before going in. So then reading it and feeling the way I did about it, it just didn't hit like I thought it was going to. And I really thought this was going to be one of my highest rated books of the entire year, but it actually ended up being one of the lowest. And that's Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan, which makes me so sad to say because the way I genuinely thought I was going to absolutely love this. And it's weird because if we break down this book, it has all the elements of a romance that I absolutely love, but I just couldn't get on with it. I just found that I was cringing so much throughout this whole book. I didn't really connect with either of the characters. I didn't really like some of the things that the characters were doing or saying, and it just overall just made me cringe. And I feel like when a book, especially a romance, makes me cringe, it really sort of pulls me out of a story and really makes me detached from it because I can't be dealing with it. And then I had quite a few questions about book tropes and my favourite book tropes and my top 3 book tropes. So I'm going to do top 3. My top book trope, my favourite ever, is the soulmate trope. I absolutely love that trope. That feeling that they're just destined to be together, that no matter what, they're always going to be brought back together. Life keeps pushing them together, or they just can't leave each other alone. That soulmate trope is my favourite of all time. And all my favourite romance books have that trope in. It makes me so happy. It makes me so happy. And I feel like it's really hard to kind of capture that soulmate trope in a book to the point where you just feel so connected to them as characters and them being together. And I also think it's quite rare to find because there's only probably a handful of books that I feel like they are absolute soulmates and they're just meant to be together, kind of destined to be together. But that's my all-time favourite book trope. Then we have enemies to lovers, of course. But I feel like enemies when they're actually enemies. Not so much that they just don't get on, like actual genuine enemies. I really like that trope. And then for the third one, I'm gonna go for fake dating. I feel like you can't really go wrong with fake dating. It's just a bit of fun. I think that's what I like so much about it. It's just a bit of fun. And it always just makes me giddy. And then also, recently, I've realised that I actually really like the childhood friends to lovers trope as well, which is something that I didn't really know about myself. But recently, a lot of the books that I've been loving have been friends to lovers or childhood friends to lovers, especially when it's in a YA book as well. Like, If He Had Been With Me, that's childhood friends to lovers. And a lot of the YA romances I absolutely love because they're childhood friends to lovers. And that's something that I didn't really know about myself until recently, until I realised that I actually got excited when I found out that a book that I'm going to read has friends to lovers or childhood friends to lovers in. So I'm going to throw that one in there as well. The next question I absolutely love, I think this is so fun to think about, is which book couples do you think would still be together now and which do you think wouldn't be? And I honestly had to really sit there and think about this question. Okay, so let's start off with book couples that I think would still be together. This one I actually feel like there are quite a few that I think that they would still be together now, but the ones that really stuck out to me. First up we have Magnolia and BJ. This is a book where the soulmate trope is done so well. It's one of the reasons why this is one of my favourite books. And the further you get on in the series, especially with the Magnolia books, you just realise how much Magnolia and BJ are just meant to be. They're meant to be. They're constantly brought back together. They literally can't leave each other alone. And I just feel like they would very much still be together because no matter what happens in their life, they've always stuck with each other. I just think they'd definitely be together. I just do. I just do. Then we have Finn and Liv from Seven Summers by Paige Toon. This one I read really recently and I absolutely loved them. I loved them. I loved their connection. I loved their whole dynamic. I loved their story and just how it feels very uncertain throughout the whole thing. But again, this is another couple that I just feel like they are constantly there for each other. They constantly have each other's back no matter what goes on in their life and no matter what happens. They just always show up for each other, and that's the reason that I think that they would still be together. And then we have Rhett and Summer from Flawless, and this is a couple that I didn't massively connect to, but I can absolutely see how they're so good together, and I genuinely think they would work through anything that life throws at them, and I genuinely think that they work well together and I like them. And I do very much think that they would still be together. Okay, moving on to couples that I don't think would still be together. When I was really thinking about it, these are the couples that I kind of came up with. The first one is Daisy Hayes and Christian. Look, look, I didn't even expect for me to say that. I don't know what it is about them. I don't think they would be together. Which makes me so sad to say because I do want them to be together. I just feel like they're kind of rocky. I don't feel like they're very solid together. I don't know what it is. I feel like this is a couple where life would actually get in the way of them being together. That's kind of the vibe that I get from them. And the Daisy Hates book I haven't finished yet, so we'll see. We'll see if I'm proven wrong. I feel like they really want to be together, but somehow they can't make it work. That's the vibe that they give me. And then we have Eileen and Anders from A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This is purely because I didn't feel the connection with them. I felt like the romance in this was very much more in the background. I just don't think they would work. I just didn't really feel it with them two, and that's why I think long term I don't think they'd actually still be together. And then for our third one, this one might be kind of controversial, but it's Alex and Ava from Twisted Love by Anna Huang. And this actually has nothing to do with the fact that I didn't really like these two. It's more to do with the fact that I think she would get sick of him and all of his... I just don't think she would put up with him long term. I think she'd get sick of him, and he just gives me the vibe that he's kind of self-destructive, and I just don't think it would work. So that's the third couple that I don't think would still be together now. And then I had quite a few questions about books that I wish I could read for the first time again. And this is something that I actually think about all the time, because some of my favourite books, I just wish I could reread them without knowing what was coming. So I've narrowed it down to 3, which all of these I've mentioned already in this video, so I'm going to whiz through them. First one is a given, Magnolia Parks. I just wish I could experience this and meeting these characters again for the first time without knowing what was up ahead and what was coming. And then we have We Were Liars, which the reason that I wish I could read this for the first time again is because I wish I didn't know what happened, so then I could experience it again, because I can never read this now without knowing what's going to happen. And then we have Every Last Word. Again, I've already mentioned this book, but this is another one where, because I know what happens, I'm never going to get that feeling again, and I've never experienced the feeling that I have with this book with any other book so far. Just the pure shock, and I literally got shivers. I can't deal with it. So I just really wish that I could reread this without knowing what was going to happen. Next question is, what season is your favourite to read in and why? I'm going to say autumn is my favourite to read in. I am very much an autumn winter kind of girly. I do really like summer. I like all the summery books, and I just like the whole vibe, and I think it's a really happy vibe. But at my core, I am an autumn winter girly. I absolutely love it. There is nothing quite like the excitement of Halloween and Christmas. I just absolutely love it. I love it. And the reason I picked autumn is because I love it when the leaves are turning, when they're falling, when it's cold enough to wear big oversized sweatshirts and jumpers, because if you know anything about me, you'll probably know that I love wearing oversized cozy clothes, and I literally live in sweatshirts and hoodies. But I also love being indoors with a nice hot cup of tea in my oversized sweatshirt when it's raining outside. That is perfection. That is perfection. And then also in autumn, you've got all those things to look forward to. You've got Halloween, you've got Christmas coming up, and it's just the perfect reading weather. I absolutely love it. I just feel like if it's rainy or really windy outside, it just makes it so much more cozy inside. I love having my little fairy lights on. I love having a little candle burning, and a little autumn scented candle. Stop it right now. Warm cup of tea. It honestly makes me so excited. I also find that in autumn, I feel like reading anything, any genre goes in my head, because I feel like in summer I'm really concentrated on summer books and it's more sort of a romance kind of vibe. But I feel like in autumn, any genre I'm literally in the mood for, and it just fits well with every single genre, I feel like. And then the next question is, what are the books that you have high expectations for that you've been putting off? And I have quite a few for this. The first one is Bad Blood by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 4th and final one in the Natural series. The reason I've been putting this off is because I don't want this series to be over. I literally don't want it to end. So I've been putting off even buying this. I literally don't even own a physical copy of it yet, because I don't want it to be done. It's just going to make me so sad when it's over. And every single book in the series so far has been better and better than the previous one. So I'm hoping that that's going to be the same case with this one. I feel like it's going to be. I feel like I'm absolutely going to love it, but I'm putting it off because I'm going to be sad when it's over. The next one that I have high expectations for is Fourth Wing, just based on how much hype this book has. And I do think I'm going to really like it, but I hope that I like it as much as how much hype it has. And the reason that I've been putting this off is just because I haven't really been in the mood to read it yet. I'm just waiting until I'm in the right mood to read it, because I feel like I'm just going to enjoy it even more if I'm in the right mood for it. And then next one is Mile High by Liz Tomford. I keep seeing so much about this whole series, and I know that she's recently come out with her newest one in the series as well, and I haven't even read the first one, and I don't know why I keep putting it off. I think it's because it's just so chunky, and I know so many people have told me that when you start reading it, it won't feel that long because you'll just fly through it, but something about it is just intimidating me because it's literally, how many pages is it? 570. 570 for a romance as well. I feel like that's a lot. But I'm really excited to hopefully find a new series that I really like, but I have been putting it off purely because it's so long. And then the next one is actually one of my most anticipated reads at the minute on my TBR, and that's Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. The reason that this is so highly anticipated for me is because I'm still yet to read an Abby Jimenez book. I recently bought Just for the Summer, but I wanted to read it in order. So this is the first one in that standalone interconnected series, and this will be my first Abby Jimenez book. I feel like I'm really gonna like her writing, hopefully anyway. I don't know what it is about it, but I feel like I'm gonna really connect with it, and that's why I have high expectations for it. I think more so her books in general rather than this specific book, because I do kind of think from what I've heard I'll probably like Yours Truly more than this one, but I'm including this one because Abby Jimenez books in general are some of my most highly anticipated books, and also the books I have high expectations for. So I'm excited to see what her writing's like and whether I really connect with it or not. And that's actually our final question. I feel like this has been a really nice little chit chat that I've had with you. Thank you so much for watching, and if you've made it this far and literally listened to me ramble on and on, I really appreciate you. Thank you again to everybody over on my Instagram that asked me any of these questions. I'm so grateful for you, and I really hope that you enjoyed watching, and I have so many exciting reading vlogs and videos planned coming soon, so I really hope that you'll stick around for them, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. I literally feel like I've been talking for about 5 hours.